5 years ago, the Jacksonville Jaguars played in the AFC Championship. Blake Bortles was the starting quarterback, Leonard Fournette was dominating on the ground, and Doug Marrone was the Jaguars head coach. Fast forward, and Jacksonville is one win away from another AFC Championship appearance. And this Jaguars team looks completely different than it did 5 years ago. But first, this video is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. The first round of the playoffs has come and gone, and the field of contenders just keeps getting smaller and smaller as teams continue to compete for eternal football glory. If that's not enough to get your blood pumping, DraftKings, today's sponsor, is giving all new customers a winning offer. All new customers need to do is sign up for DraftKings using my promo code JDPROD and bet at least $5 on any NFL playoff game of your choosing, and you'll instantly receive an additional $200 in bonus bets. That's right, all new customers bet at least $5 on any NFL playoff game of your choosing and instantly receive an additional $200 in bonus bets deposited directly into your account. If you're wondering what to use those $200 on, try out same game parlays, where you can combine multiple bets from a game, like who's gonna win or by how much, for even bigger winnings. If mobile sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry, because you can still join in on the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now, and all new customers use my promo code JDPROD and bet at least $5 on any NFL playoff game of your choosing and instantly receive $200 in bonus bets. That's promo code JDPROD only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Thanks again to DraftKings for sponsoring today's video. Let's get right back to it. Doug Pederson has seemingly turned around the Jaguars in his first year at the helm. Trevor Lawrence is beginning to look like what we all thought he could be, and everything is just going right for the Jaguars at the right time. The season started off very rough, but Jacksonville has won its last 5 games of the season and knocked off the Chargers in the wildcard round in the wildest way. After watching that wildcard game, I think it's safe to say that the Jaguars can make some serious noise this offseason. The Jacksonville Jaguars hosted the Los Angeles Chargers in the AFC wildcard. It definitely didn't jump off to the start that Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars had hoped for. Lawrence ended up throwing 3 interceptions in the first quarter and tossed up 1 more for safe measures in the second quarter. The Chargers just had their way in the first half. Austin Eckler found the end zone twice, and Los Angeles raced out to a 27-0 lead. Jacksonville was somewhat able to minimize that damage late in the first half with an Evan Engram touchdown with less than a minute remaining. That left the Jaguars going into the half down 27-7, and the Chargers also got the ball to start the second half, but it didn't end up mattering. The Jaguars ended up scoring points on all 4 of their drives. Lawrence passed for 3 touchdowns in the half, and Cameron Dicker made a single field goal for Los Angeles from 50 yards out, but missed from 40. It ultimately came down to a 36-yard Riley Pederson field goal to win the game 31-30 and complete the 3rd largest comeback in playoff history. Both Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence passed for just shy of 300 yards. Herbert had a single touchdown, and Lawrence had 4 to go with his 4 interceptions. Travis Etienne dominated on the ground, rushing for over 100 yards. Gerald Everett was kind of the guy for the Chargers. He had over 100 yards and a touchdown in the pass game for them, and Evan Engram really came to play and recorded 93 yards and a touchdown for Jacksonville. It's amazing to see what Jacksonville has done up until this point, but how did they get here? The Jacksonville Jaguars came into the 2022 season with some hope after Doug Pederson was hired to be their next head coach. The development of Trevor Lawrence was first and foremost. The Jaguars ended up having a tale of 2 halves this season. Jacksonville lost in week 1 to the Commanders before rattling off back-to-back victories over the Colts and Chargers. There was some reason to be excited, but everything fell apart fast. The Jaguars looked awful and lost their next 5 games straight to the Eagles, Texans, Colts, Giants, and Broncos. Jacksonville finally got right in week 9 in a victory over the Raiders, but lost the following week to the Chiefs to drop to 3-7 heading into their bye. The Jaguars certainly didn't appear to be making any kind of run at the postseason, and at the time, the Titans were 7-3 and well in control of the AFC South. Tennessee proceeded to lose its last 7 games of the season, though. Meanwhile, the Jags got hot. Jacksonville narrowly escaped Baltimore out of the bye, but lost to Detroit in blowout fashion in week 13 to drop to 4-8. It was definitely a long uphill battle, but the Jags ended up doing it. Jacksonville finished their season 5-0. The Jags trailed 27-10 to come back and defeat Dallas. They beat the Jets and the Texans easily and were victorious victorious over the Titans twice, including a Week 18 winner-take-all AFC South matchup. Jacksonville finished the season 9-8 and ended up winning their division. If you're looking for the single biggest reason for the Jaguars' success this season, look no further than Trevor Lawrence. The Jacksonville Jaguars selected Trevor Lawrence first overall at the 2021 NFL Draft. It was a no-brainer decision after his time at Clemson. Lawrence was a 3-year starter, won a national championship, only ended up losing 2 games, and was All-ACC 3 times, including in 2020 when he was the ACC Player of the Year. He was the easy pick at the draft, but he didn't end up having a good rookie season, and a lot of that blame goes on Urban Meyer. Meyer only lasted 13 games in the NFL before the Jags gave him the boot. He was just terrible and had non-stop controversies and proved to be one of the worst head coaches in league history. Trevor Lawrence passed for 3,600 yards and 12 touchdowns to a league-leading 17 interceptions as a rookie. The Jaguars went 3-14 with him under center, and it was just bad. The question for Lawrence heading into his second season was if Urban Meyer had completely ruined him, but that definitely wasn't the case. Jacksonville went on to hire Doug Pederson, and the Jaguars turned around completely. Lawrence had a major statistical improvement too, throwing for 4,100 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions while going 9-8. Doug Pederson has been huge for the development of Trevor Lawrence, but a lot of credit is due to the Jacksonville Jaguars for their offseason acquisitions. I, like a lot of people, were pretty critical about some of the decisions, especially how much they decided to pay some of these guys. But it clearly worked out, even if they did overpay for some of them. There were 3 key signings, and all 3 have managed to have a career year, and nobody has been better in recent weeks than Evan Engram. The New York Giants drafted Evan Engram in the first round in 2017. He spent 5 seasons in the Big Apple, and he had his moments. Engram recorded over 500 yards 3 times and had 722 yards and 6 touchdowns his rookie year. He signed a 1-year, $9 million contract with the Jags ahead of 2022 and had a career season. Engram had a career-high 766 yards and found the end zone 4 times. The Jaguars also signed 2 wide receivers for a lot more than you would have expected, but both have actually paid off. Christian Kirk was a second-round pick in 2018 by the Arizona Cardinals. He ended up turning into a solid wide receiver in Arizona. Kirk had over 500 yards in each season, and in 2021, recorded nearly 1,000 yards. The Jacksonville Jaguars inked him to a 4-year, $72 million deal in the 2022 offseason, and Kirk went on to have a career year. He set career highs in almost every statistical category, 84 receptions, 1,108 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Kirk will likely have a smaller role next season after Jacksonville traded for Calvin Ridley, but regardless, he's still going to produce. Zay Jones is likely to be the 3rd wide receiver on that roster, making $8 million per season. Zay Jones was a high 2nd-round pick to the Buffalo Bills back in 2017, but he never ended up panning out to what Buffalo had hoped. He had a 600-yard season in 2018 and was traded to the Raiders during the following regular season for a 5th-round pick. Jones spent 2.5 years playing for the Raiders and did record 500 yards in 2021. That helped him ink a 3-year, $24 million contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars the following offseason. It paid off for the Jaguars. Zay had career highs with 823 yards and 82 receptions. The Jacksonville Jaguars were the worst team in the league for 2 consecutive years. Jacksonville drafted Trevor Lawrence in 2021, and this past offseason made a pretty interesting selection. The Jacksonville Jaguars had the first overall pick at the 2022 NFL Draft and decided to use it on Trayvon Walker. Walker played 3 years at Georgia and wasn't necessarily anything special on the stat sheet. He had less than 10 sacks in college, but teams raved about his athleticism and what he could be at the next level. Walker had a great NFL debut. He had a sack and an interception in week 1, but was a non-factor for most of his rookie season. Walker finished the year with 45 tackles and 3.5 sacks. I haven't honestly been very impressed with Trayvon Walker. I think he'll turn into a fine pass rusher, but I still stand by the Aiden Hutchinson and Kayvon Thibodeau being the superior players. I honestly love the Jacksonville Jaguars. Watching Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars turn everything around this season has been so much fun to watch. I think everyone knew what Trevor Lawrence was capable of being in the NFL. He was just so good at Clemson. He had amazing tools and skills as a freshman, and that's why he was the #1 quarterback in the class. The tank for Trevor sentiment was a saying for a reason. Every team wanted him, but Jacksonville ended up getting him and easily could have ruined him in 2021. The Urban Meyer experiment certainly was something. It goes without saying that he was a horrible head coach. He was a constant distraction, getting into trouble, and Shad Khan made the right call by firing him. Doug Pederson, though, has already proven that he can succeed with this roster. He learned under Andy Reid and did pretty well in Philadelphia. It may have not ended well, but he brought a Super Bowl to the Eagles, made Carson Wentz look like an MVP candidate. Pederson inherited a stud in Trevor Lawrence, who has so much potential, and honestly, he's starting to reach it. The beginning of the season was definitely a bit rocky. I thought the Jaguars were going to be really good after week 1, but nothing was clicking in the following weeks. Down the stretch, though, Jacksonville clearly figured things out, and Trevor was playing some amazing football. I don't think it's out of the question for the Jaguars to make a serious run like the Bengals did last season. The Bengals are shaky due to injury, the Bills' defense has a lot of problems, and the Chiefs' special teams could get Kansas City in trouble at some point. I doubt the Jaguars win it all this year, but the Jacksonville Jaguars are dangerously good.